Hello, in this video I want to have a look at the sacred Ished tree, Ished, or this sacred Sycamore tree, which was so important in ancient Egypt, but especially in regards to its usage from the earliest period, earliest recorded period, up to the middle and late, and even up to the Ptolemaic period, but especially its connection to Seshat, who is the female equivalent of Thoth, but by no means a subordinate. In many ways, she is more prominent, more important, but as time progressed, especially from the Old Kingdom onwards, her role became, Thoth overtook her role, and so she's not as prominent as she was in the older period. But for instance, Thoth is the god of knowledge, geometry, science, astronomy, record keeping especially, and it was Thoth who taught humanity how to write, but it was actually Seshat who was the inventor of writing. And so again, if we begin with the Old Kingdom, even pre-dynastic period, we'll see the importance of Seshat there. But as we move along, one of her main roles, such as the stretching the cord ceremony, remains, but she sort of seems to be overtaken by Thoth. But Seshat is really important, especially in regards to one of her titles was a Mistress of the House of Books, or the Mistress of the House of Life. The House of Life being the school or the library connected to major temples, Heliopolis, Karnak, and others, and we'll see that. So the Per Ankh is the House of Life. This was the Hall of Records, the House of Records, and both Thoth and Seshat, especially being in regards to weights and measures, geometry, astronomy, accounting, writing, and all things academic, scientific. That was their role, and especially the importance of Seshat in this whole thing. But now we'll have a look at the Ished tree, or the Tree of Life, which is also an important part of this record-keeping tradition of both Thoth, but especially Seshat. I'll put links in the description to a recent series, an ongoing series still, on Heliopolis in the northern suburbs of Cairo. Now there's an open-air museum and a symbol obelisk still standing, and it seems to be largely forgotten. It's not one of these grand, beautiful sites that is still left over, but it is of such importance to the ancient Egyptians. So it is the point at where the nine gods of the Ennead was said to have been born, the point where the world itself was created. Its importance cannot be underestimated. In that encircled area, you can see the actual natural mound, which was there and was believed in Lower Egypt believed to be the point where Atum created the Benben, or the Bennu, sorry, and the Phoenix. The Benben stone, this being the mound, the point of creation. Recent geomorphological and geophysical surveys of the area have shown that this natural mound is indeed the location which ancient writers described it as being. But it is also related to Seshat, because that was one of her primary sanctuaries, and also to the Benben mound, or the point of creation, where Atum, the self-created god of the Ennead, arose from the waters, created the mound, and gave birth to Tefnut and Shu, who then went on to give birth to Geb and Nut, and then Nephthys, Horus, Isis, Osiris, and Set. But it is also the point upon which the sacred Ished tree grew. So the Ished tree of Heliopolis is at least the highest, if not the most important, of these sacred trees. There were several sacred Ished, the sycamore trees, across Egypt. However, the Ished tree, the sycamore at Heliopolis, being really important in this sense, because especially in regards to keeping records and recording the name of the pharaoh, the deeds of the pharaoh, and this was done on the Ished tree by Thoth, but especially Seshat, and in the earlier period it was much more Seshat's duty, and then Thoth seems to have overtaken her. Now there's a difference between Upper and Lower Egypt, and they focus on certain features, but they have some very important things in common. But in regards to the Book of the Dead, for instance, in chapter 17, it names the Yinu, or Heliopolis, being this sacred tree where the sun split the tree in half, but also where the sacred cat, the great cat, Meow, protected the tree, this tree of life, this tree of knowledge, from Apophis, who each evening as the solar boat descended at sunset into the underworld, Apophis would attack the boat, but Apophis was always trying to destroy the order of things. It wanted to return to the singularity, before creation everything was one, a singularity. Apophis, or Apet, was a god opposed to this, and so the cat at Heliopolis, and the dots of the cat, you notice, are very similar to the leopard skin, which is also the clothing of Seshat. Next, I'd like to play of Nature TV Speakers Corner London, who is currently on a tour in Egypt, has been posting, and he is at the temple of Karnak. But it must be Heliopolis is at least as old as the beginning of the Old Kingdom, as where places such as Karnak, Luxor, and the Ramesseum come at least 1,000 years later. But we'll be looking at the Tree of Life there, the Ishad tree, and by this time, Seshat, her roles had been pretty much reduced to the stretching the cord ceremony. But now we'll play these clips. Our link will be in a description.
والنهارده انت يا رب
لا والنهارده مقابل استاذ صابر كمان
ان شاء الله نشوفكم على خير دايما يا رب ان شاء الله يا مساء. Look here, yeah. Here is Ramses II is kneeling under the sacred tree.
Sacred tree.
Yeah, in front of Amun Mut Khonsu and Tut or Jehuti. He write his name in tree.
You write his name in the tree on the leaf.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
On the leaf. And would it be the sycamore tree?
Mm-hmm.
Sycamore tree. So we have Amun, Mut, and Khonsu.
Yeah. I think when you come last time, you didn't see this part.
No, because he said time to go for a walk for half an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, because I only had 15 minutes, and he said go for a walk for half an hour. I needed that half an hour. In the end, he didn't charge me. I said, how much should I have to do? He said, no, it's free. Because I realised you then had a little walk, so. But I saw the sacred lake. That was beautiful. See the sacred lake? Yeah, I'll just. Aman.
And this obelisk, we have here many obelisks. You seen obelisk before?
Yes.
Where?
Look at these beautiful scenes, guys, here, which is show us the tree of life. I think, have you heard about that before? Right, the Egyptian, as we mentioned, they've been very, very superstitious. They believe that they have a tree for life, and they need to write them names on the leaves of that tree to guard the eternity. So here, Ramses II sitting on the middle of the tree, and he raises his hand, asking from the god Amun-Ra, his wife and his son, right, to give order to the human body and the ibis head that we call the god Thoth, the god of knowledge and right. They want to ask him, Ramses II want to ask the god to give order to the god of the knowledge to write his name on the leaves of the tree. Because since he got that, he will get the eternity. You can see that the god already raised the other hand and ordered the god Thoth to write his name, right? But here, guys, I would like to show you something very strange, right? Can you come, lady? Can you sit here? Come on. Your husband, your future.
So at Karnak we saw the Persia tree or the Ishad tree, this sycamore, where the pharaoh's name would be written into history, the keeping of the records, which was attached to Thoth, the god who taught humanity writing. However, here at the Ramesseum, we have the same essential image, but we have Seshat being the one who keeps these records, who writes the pharaoh's name on this sacred Ishad tree, the sycamore tree such as Heliopolis. Now also as a comparison, we see her depiction there with her head. You see the various descriptions of what exactly plant it is, but that comes from the later period of her. So we see that 7-leafed plant with these upside down horns in there. But if we go back to the Old Kingdom, so in the shadow of the pyramids there are many of these graves where high officials were buried, and the slab stela, I'll put a PDF that goes through these. We see the slab stela of Weponefret, and amongst many other essential elements of Seshat, the goddess of architecture, geometry, writing, etc. There we see the earlier depiction where the 7 leaves have a horn, but with these the image there above it, which is more to come in the future in regards to Seshat. So see the later period on the left and the Old Kingdom description of Seshat there. Also in the grave complexes right next to the pyramid where these high officials were born, we have these slab stela, which were basically like a notice board of their positions. And in this one we see the stela of Seshat Second Tui, and I just got the image there as well. I'll put the link to this whole PDF because it's very detailed information, and so many of these slab stela and importance that they have there. But it's better to look at this drawing of there because we get a clearer picture. And above the head there, so Weponefret was a priest of Seshat, the keeper of royal records, and similar titles. But also here we see the older description, the older image of Seshat, the hieroglyph, let's just call it, for her. So we see on the left, we see Seshat at the Luxor temple with the 7 leaves and the upside down horns. That's later period. In the Old Kingdom, going back, we have this being the hieroglyph or the image of Seshat, the lady of writing, the goddess of librarians, the goddess of architects, and so many other points. Which brings us to one of the most important pieces of evidence we have from ancient Egypt, and this is the Palomo Stone. Its exact origin is unknown. There are several pieces spread around the world, and different pieces were found actually in Lower and Upper Egypt, probably a thing of antiquities traders moving. So the exact site of it, whether it was Memphis, Heliopolis, or Upper Egypt, is unsure. But what's interesting about the Palomo Stone is that it has a king's list which has kings before Nama. So most people have probably heard of the Seti I Abydos king's list, which begins with Nama. This older kings list, which also describes the stretching the cord ceremony, includes older kings such as Scorpio, Scorpion 1. But notice that both the Nama palette has the 7 leaves, the 7-petaled flower, as does the Scorpion, King Scorpio, and even the plough that he carried, or the tool that he, but that's something else, we'll get to that in the future. But Seshat, she of 7 points, and there we see the 7 points. Now one of the things, as well as recording the pharaoh's name, Seshat would record the slaves captured in war, the animals captured in war, and these other parts, which is rather nice because the Nama palette depicts these exact things. And this 7-petal rosette, pre-dynastic, was used and then seems to have been reintroduced around about the 3rd dynasty, and then we have some movement through there. But that's some examples of Seshat and why she's so important. She's the goddess of the female equivalent of Thoth. Geometry, astronomy, writing, libraries, the houses of life, measurement, including the Nilometer and other aspects, were all connected to this goddess Seshat, who pre-dynastic period was so important, and then seems to have faded out, although even up until the Ptolemaic period she was still essential in the stretching the cord ceremony. Thank you for watching, and I apologise for the roughness of these videos. I've been looking into Seshat and trying to compile it into a better designed, more coherent video. So I'll just be putting pieces up for the moment, but I'll put links in the description to this series I did on Heliopolis, the Ben, and the importance of Heliopolis as a centre of record keeping, astronomy, geometry, science in general, because it's so important to Seshat, especially in the Nile Delta. Also put a couple other links in the description. Earlier Seshat video, also the Ishad tree and the connections to the Virgin Mary tree in Cairo, just less than a kilometre away. And please watch Ray's Thoth channel, link in the description. Some great stuff he's posting. Have a good one.